What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some things that will help all wide receivers become unguardable. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it can teach you a few new things, but also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you would like to get some off-season work in with us this year, we are traveling out to 15 states across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. We are coming out to San Francisco, Orlando, Florida, New Orleans, Charlotte, Dallas, the DMV, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles, California. So check out that very first link below, fellas. 8 hours of training, 2 days total. We'll have DBs out there to work one-on-ones and half-line stuff with you guys. So very first link below. Let's get started with this video. So now, first things first, when you guys are trying to get separation on your routes, the upper body, your body language, is the biggest thing that will sell the route for you. So we're looking at this dive release 10-yard out here from Davante Adams. Now, the reason why this is such a great example of this is he's able to get Jair Alexander, who's probably the best DB in the league, to flip his hips and bite on an inside route in one-on-ones. So what a dive release is where you pretty much just dive to the inside. It's like the opposite of a diamond release. I'm sure all of you know what a diamond release is, where you have inside shade press. You take 3 steps to the outside trying to get the DB to open, and we slip under and run a slant. So it's the opposite. You take 2 to 3 hard steps inside to get this DB to crash to slip back out. But in one-on-ones, it might not be the best release to do because you're selling a drag route, and nobody runs a drag in one-on-ones. So what Davante Adams does such a great job of is committing his hips and his shoulders to the release. And this goes for anything, fellas. This is one of the key things to make you unguardable, is obviously being a salesman. And how you sell routes is with your upper body. So you see, when he cuts, he is not starting to cheat the release. His hips and his shoulders are not starting to go to the outside before his foot gets down. So many wide receivers struggle with this. They're going to make a cut, but right before they cut, because they're so anxious to get out of it, they're so anxious to get up into the route quickly, their hips and their shoulders will start to turn. I call that cheating the route. You have to make sure that your hips, your shoulders, everything is committed to that drag, and you're using the foot, the cut, to change directions for you. And that's what will get a DB to bite. And especially in one-on-ones, this is so impressive because there's no threat of a drag there. And Jair Alexander isn't an idiot. He's one of the best DBs in the game. So that's a textbook release there from Davante Adams. And that goes for anything. Like, let's say, for example, Jair Alexander's off at like 10 yards and we got to run a post route, and he's inside leverage. And when you have that look, what you want to do is you want to attack the outside shoulder and hip of the DB, push, fade, get him to commit, and then slip under on the post. So you have to commit your hips and your shoulders all the way until that last second. It works off the line, and it works at the top of the route. One of the best ways to be unguardable, fellas, is understand how your body can help you sell routes. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Adams getting separation on that dive. I know the clip cuts out, but he does catch this ball. That's a great overall route. Okay, so now, this next example here is from Keenan Allen, and the second way to be unguardable is by utilizing something I call getting skinny. And I'm sure a lot of other wide receiver coaches will use this terminology as well. So what is getting skinny? What does that mean? So let's watch Keenan Allen. He's running this kind of post-out concept here versus inside shade coverage about 5 yards off. So this is like pre-snap. This is a very, very intimidating look. I know you can't see the DB, but you got a DB, let's say, I'm going to draw it on the screen. Let's say you're here. You have to run a post out, but you have a DB who's inside shade at about 5. That's kind of awkward. You know what I'm saying? Because he's 5 yards off, so it's not like we could just run away from him and take the inside release, because he'll force me all the way to the inside. And it's not like I could try to just go straight over the top, get his hips to flip and slip under because he's at 5 yards. So my only option would be to attack him, close the distance with him, and make a move. Now, the problem with this is that you're running a post out. You're running a double move. So what Keenan Allen does a great job of here is getting skinny after the release to put him in a position of where he can restack the DB. So you see how he sets him up inside. He attacks his leverage, he gives him a move, but when he gets up vertical into the route, you see how he's focused on beating the outside hand. He's not worried about the inside hand of the DB, and he is going hip to hip with him to restack, and I call that getting skinny back over the top, because that immediately puts this DB at a disadvantage. He's trailing my back hip. If he were to stay with me, it would be really tight coverage, and he'd be on my inside hip, so when I break to that post and I go back out, I got some separation because I stayed skinny. So many wide receivers, the mistake they'll make, let's not say this is a post out. Let's say this is just a regular post. They'll attack this guy. They take the outside release, but they go super wide. And when there's a big gap between you and the DB and you got to run an inside route, that's not good, because he's going to be able to recover, get over the top, and make a play. So getting skinny, fellas, going hip to hip with the DB is a great way to do that. Now, how you can do that, because I could say it all day long. I could sit here and say, hey, you got to get skinny. You got to get skinny. You know, a receiver runs a bad route and he doesn't get skinny. I could just tell him, hey, man, make sure you get skinny. And then that's it. How do you actually do that? And that is by understanding hand technique off the line or middle of the route. So when you got a DB who's inside shade, number one, if we want to take an outside release, you got to think about it like this. Which hand do I need to beat of the DBs to be able to take this outside release? What hand could prevent me from taking an outside release? That would be his outside hand. So that would be his right hand in this case. So when I'm doing this release, I'm trying to set him up with my feet, but I know with my hand technique, it shouldn't be overly complicated. A lot of times you see all the old school videos on YouTube of like the 50, 60-year-old wide receiver coaches talking about hand technique off the line, and they're giving all a million different hand techniques to use. But it's like, dude, like it's way simpler than that. You just have to understand concepts. You have to understand why a DB is playing a certain way and how I can structure my route accordingly to beat that. So we know that he's inside shade. He's trying to prevent the inside route. So he's for sure going to be shooting with his inside hand. So for me to take an outside release, I just have to beat his outside hand. If he comes at me with a two-handed jam, who cares if he gets hands on me with his left? All I got to do is just beat the right hand. And that's what Keenan Allen does because he set him up with his stem. He set him up with the feet, got the DB to hold to the inside, and just let's beat the outside arm. Because when I can beat the outside arm, what can I do? I can get skinny. Even if he recovers with this left hand and it's on my hip or on my shoulder, I still got skinny. He's still trailing my back hip, and I won the release. And I kept timing with the most important guy on the field, which is the quarterback. So, fellas, understand hand technique and understand how to get skinny to be an unguardable wide receiver. If you guys can master this, you will get a ton of separation against man coverage always. Let's play this again full speed. Great job by Keenan Allen getting separation on this awkward angle and getting that DB to bite on that post out. Okay, so now, next thing I want to talk about here is having a plan for taking what the DB gives you. So you got to have a plan. I think that so many wide receivers just go out there and they're just ad-libbing. They'll get up to the line and they'll just do whatever. Like they'll just be like, maybe I'll try this right now. You got to have a structured plan when you get on that field. If you're going to get this look from a DB, I am going to do this. If it doesn't work, I'm going to do this. You need a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, you will not play fast. Nothing is worse than when a wide receiver is thinking. You know what I mean? When he's thinking too much and he's playing slow. And that's why I get a lot of crap for it, because a lot of guys will say, oh, no way the receiver's thinking about this stuff while he's running around. It's like, yeah, I know that. It's like, it's not rocket science. I know he's not thinking about that stuff because he wouldn't be able to play as fast as he does. It's about having a plan. You need a plan in place beforehand. You need to think beforehand so you don't have to think during the play. And it can become a habit, which is muscle memory. So let's watch Stephon Diggs here. He takes an inside release and he's running a corner route. This is just an instinct hip shift that he does to get some separation. So we come up to the line. Let's say I attack a DB. He's outside shade. Now, I know we can't see it. I know it's not like the aerial look that we're used to. But he takes an inside release, and he's running a corner or an out route, whatever this is. Automatically, when I come up to the line and I see that DB's outside shade, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to attack him outside, inside release. My instinct is to work a rocker step at the top, give a little hip shift inside, or if he plays it well, I could throw him by. So what do I mean by that? I mean that when you get inside, and again, look what he does. He's getting skinny. He's getting hip to hip with the DB. He's dipping that shoulder so he could get this DB trailing his back hip and a little bit of a jersey grab right there as well. So now when he's trailing my back hip, I can do whatever I want. That's like the final portion of that Keenan Allen route. He was working a double move, but this is just a single move route. So he gives this 1-2 inside. He sells with the upper body. He's got a two-way go right now because he got skinny, he restacked, and he kept what the DB, he took what the DB gave him. But again, this is a predetermined plan. This is an instinct. He's not thinking about this while he's running the route. So DB's trailing his hip, and even with good eyes, he's watching his hip. Even with the hold, we still got separation because I had a plan in place. Now, some of you might tell me, well, coach, my coach will get pissed if I take an inside release and I have an outside route, because what if this DB just stays right on my hip? What if I can't restack him? That's like what I mean. That's how you got to have a plan for that. You got to have a plan for that situation when you're faced with it, because that's how the DB can stop it. You always got to be thinking on the offensive. I'm thinking, how can I run this route? How can I succeed on this route? What if he does this? I can succeed this way. You never want to think on the defensive. You never want to think, oh man, well, what if he jams me? What am I going to do? You got to think on the offensive. How can I counter what he is doing? So if he was running hip to hip with you and you had to run this break, and let's say this DB was up here, you would take your left arm, put it on his left hip, his left shoulder. Let's get physical and let's throw him by and slip under him rather than over the top and using a rocker step. It's got to be an instinct, and it has to be simple. It's got to be simple to you. Some guys are more advanced than others, but it has to be simple to you. Let's play this again full speed. Great job by Diggs taking that inside release, giving that 1-2, and then winning on that out type corner break. Okay, so now, next thing to be able to master the art of route running, or to be able to just be a successful route runner, to be unguardable, you have to understand how to accelerate on routes. You have to understand how to run a quarterback-friendly route. So we're looking at Stephon Diggs here. This is clips of him when he was with the Vikings, and he is running a fade. So this is a common route. Everybody loves to run a fade. So let's watch what he does. So he gets separation on the fade, but look how long he keeps his head down. And this is one of the best ways that you can get separation against a fast DB if you're maybe on the slower side of things. This is how you get separation on a disciplined DB, is by keeping your head down and accelerating. So many wide receivers don't know how to do this. Because let me tell you this, from a quarterback perspective, because I played the position, when I see this and I got one of my best guys, one of my fastest guys, and we're running a fade, I am taking a quick 3-step drop, a quick hitch, and I am putting the ball out there with some air. I am not sitting there waiting for you to get open and then trying to bullet it in there. It's not 7-on-7. 7-on-7 is complete crap because you're playing on like a 20-yard field. So when you're in a real game scenario, real field, and he's got space to throw you open, man, you better keep that head down and go get to that spot. Because I'm putting that thing out there, especially if you're fast. So many wide receivers, they'll do their release, they'll get separation, they'll get the DB by a step or two, and then they start looking back for the ball. Then that ball's thrown too far ahead of you, and then it looks like the quarterback overthrew, but really, it's on the receiver. And I'm being hard on the receivers, but as a receiver, like, I want that ball. I'm doing whatever I can to go get that reception because I don't get a lot of targets. That's just how receiver is sometimes. You don't get a ton of targets, especially if you're not the biggest part of the offense. So you got to make sure that that head stays down. I'm not looking back for that ball until I got him by about a couple steps, and I know where that quarterback is throwing it. Now, that's where chemistry comes into play, because this is not something that, like, if you're at a camp, it's tough to do this because you don't know the quarterback that's throwing to you. You got to tell that guy if you're in a camp setting, or you got to pull your quarterback aside and be like, hey, man, go put this ball to the 10. I'm going to go get there. That's how it's got to be, because you got to keep that head down to not only get separation, but so that QB can get the ball out of his hands before he's sacked and you can win on that catch. Nothing's worse than when you run a fade and you got open, the quarterback gets sacked. So tell him, get the ball up quick, put some air on it, I'll go get that thing. Just go put it to a landmark and I will go catch it. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Diggs keeping his head down and showcasing how you could accelerate to run a quarterback-friendly route to win on every single type of throw. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. Always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like to come out to one of our 15 off-season QB and wide receiver camps, check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.